Welcome to Bed Crime Stories podcast. I'm your host, T. Hope you guys are all doing well. Let me just ask that after listening to or watching this video, you find you learned something or you enjoyed it. Please do me a favor and smash the like button. Now, let's dig in. It's Saturday, August 5th. 2023, and 37-year-old Maryland mother Rachel Morin is having a day of self-care. With children ranging in age from 8 to 18 and a house cleaning business that she runs Monday through Friday, Saturday is when she can devote time to herself. At 2 p.m., Rachel hits the Glow Bronzing Studio on Red Pump Road in Bel Air for her daily spray tan session. According to the studio's employees, Rachel tells them that she's on several online dating sites. This is odd because 4 days earlier, Rachel went public online with her new relationship with a 27-year-old guy named Richard Tobin. Rachel also tells the people at the tanning studio that she's headed next to Planet Hollywood Gym for a workout. Rachel and her new boyfriend, Richard Tobin, then reportedly work out together. Tobin, who made posts to Facebook after Rachel's death, which has since been deleted, said he dropped Rachel off at her home at 5 p.m. Then, around 6 p.m., per Tobin, Rachel left home once again for a run at a local hiking trail. Her car will later be found parked at the trailhead of the very popular Ma and Pa Heritage Trail. She's been to this trail before, so perhaps didn't fear running there solo. No one seems to know if she was there alone or with someone else. The weather was beautiful at that hour. 85 degrees Fahrenheit, and the sun was still out. In fact, it would not set for another 2 hours. According to law enforcement, Rachel was spotted at the trail sometime between 6 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. But when the flaxen-haired, blue-eyed Rachel doesn't return home at a reasonable hour, her boyfriend Richard and her kids go out looking for her. At least that's what Tobin says. Shortly before midnight, after not locating Rachel, Tobin calls the police to report her missing. The next day, a search is held for Rachel. A local man named Michael Gabrzeski, who's a Native American tracker, joins the search along with his stepdaughter Cecilia, who is friends with Rachel. Cecilia's friend Evan is also along. Michael claims he was with Cecilia when she and Evan came across a scary sight. They saw 2 drainage tunnels along the trail, and after noticing disturbances on the ground nearby, they decide to look inside. It's a shocking sight. Rachel is in one of the tunnels, and she's not moving. Michael told the Daily Mail, quote, "Cecilia was the first person to see the body. She was hyperventilating really, really bad. And then the police told her to sit down. And when she did, she realized she was sitting in a big pool of blood. Rachel was laying on her back, fully naked, and she had brutal head trauma. It looked like her head had been smashed in with a rock. There was a 15 to 20 foot blood trail, so it looked like she'd been beaten and dragged into that position. It looked like the killer was trying to erase her identity. The right side of her face was gone," end quote. And a separate source close to Rachel's family had earlier told the Daily Mail that Rachel suffered serious head trauma as well. Her injuries were so horrific that there won't be an open casket at her funeral. According to Michael Gabrzeski, they spotted a large rock nearby that was covered in blood. Could that be the murder weapon? The police knew immediately that this was no accident. Rachel didn't fall and hit her head. Someone who was clearly enraged violently attacked her, concentrating on her head and face. Note that the police have since said that people should not believe what this Michael Gabrzeski has said. but that could be because they don't want to have certain information floating around in the public. Gabrzeski's father has come out to say that his son is not lying and what he said is true. The question now is, was this violent act a random event wherein Rachel had the misfortune of being on the trail when someone who didn't know her decided to brutally attack someone? Or was this the act of someone Rachel knew, someone who was aware that she'd be on that hiking trail at that hour? Or did someone go with her who attacked her? The murder, from what we've heard of it, reeks of rage. If Rachel's injuries are down to someone grabbing a rock and using it on her head and face, that person was up close and personal. Could the attacker have been a female who wanted revenge against Rachel for some reason and therefore decided to destroy not only her life, but also her lovely face? Or was this the work of a jealous boyfriend, either current or ex? Rachel's 5 children are from 3 different men. Could one of them have been behind this brutal attack? Or did the new boyfriend, Richard Tobin, find out that Rachel was still on dating sites, and did that set him off? Is he a jealous guy? Richard Tobin has said he would never hurt Rachel, but here's the problem. Tobin has a lengthy rap sheet that includes 2 arrests for criminal second-degree assault, violating restraining orders, drug possession, resisting arrest, disorderly intoxication, and malicious destruction of property. In fact, Tobin has been arrested 14 times since 2014, so he doesn't look very good on paper. He was also one of the last people to see Rachel alive, and he was her boyfriend. That has to put him at the top of the list of persons of interest, unless he was immediately able to provide a verified alibi. We know homicide detectives always look first at a person's significant other, and with this dude's rap sheet, he clearly seems like someone who doesn't have a problem breaking the law. But then again, he doesn't have a history of doing people in either. Tobin is the person who called the police to report Rachel missing, and he has adamantly denied any involvement in her death, saying, quote, "I love Rachel. I would never do anything to her. Let the family and I grieve. Yes, I have a past, but I also have 15 months clean and have changed as a person. Please," end quote. Tobin has also allegedly given a DNA sample. Note that the Hartford County Sheriff's Office has yet to comment on how exactly Rachel died, what injuries she sustained, and they also haven't named any suspects, despite receiving nearly 90 tips from community members. Now, some people have come forward to say what a kind and good mother Rachel was, including a couple who've had their house cleaned by her for the last 8 years. They told the New York Post this about Rachel: "She was very warm, and above all, she loved her children. She raised them very well. She had a flexible work schedule that allowed her to make sure her kids were always taken care of. We were like grandparents to the kids, and we trusted her implicitly," end quote. The couple also said Rachel was easygoing, almost always in a good mood, and made her children her top priority. Sadly, the children, who, as I said earlier, have 3 different fathers, while they've been split up since Rachel's death and sent to live with their respective dads. Those poor kids. Not only do they lose their mother, but then they lose their family unit and their sense of being together. Rachel's sister Rebecca wrote on a GoFundMe to help raise money for a funeral and for Rachel's 5 children. She wrote, quote, "This was not an accidental death, and she did not go willingly. She deserves a funeral worthy of her beauty," end quote. The police have reached out to obtain footage from any people who were on the trail over the weekend. They're also looking for witnesses described as either 3 men, 2 women, and 2 dogs, or 2 men, 3 women, and 2 dogs. Let's send love and prayers to Rachel's family and children, and let's hope the authorities figure out who's responsible for this violent act. What do you guys think? Could this be the act of a random stranger, or is it more likely to be someone Rachel knew? Until the next time on Bed Crime Stories. Hey, do me a favor, smash that like button, consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time.
The search is on for suspects after the remains of Rachel Morin were found Sunday afternoon in a well-traveled area of the Ma and Pa Trail in Bel Air.
Tonight, a community walk along that portion of the trail as Harford County residents are focused on support and safety.
I believe there are a few exes from the past that I'm sure they're looking into at this point. Anybody, I'm sure her phone is going to be a big source of information. Who did she last contact before she went to the trail? Location pings. Did she go somewhere before? That kind of thing. And also what's interesting is this trailhead backs up right to an apartment complex. It's literally in the parking lot of an apartment complex. I looked on Google Maps and zoomed in. I can't tell if they're lights or surveillance cameras. I'm interested to see what kind of surveillance they have. Did they see her get out of her car and start down on the trail? I think law enforcement knows way more than what they're telling us. And what's very interesting to me, Brian, is the fact that they very quickly opened this trail back up with the possibility that this was a random attack. So that kind of tells me maybe...
Yeah, that is interesting.
They know way more than what they're telling us, and maybe they have somebody in mind.
This morning says investigators have spoken with the boyfriend, but are unable to say if he's a suspect.
So right now, the investigators are working every single lead possible. We have said quite clearly there is no single suspect until we are able to narrow it down to one person. Everyone's suspect.